Hello everybody, so today's quick video is, as the title would suggest, all about the question, should I keep chickens? And I'm going to try and do a quick 5-pointer about things that I would suggest that you think about before you delve into keeping chickens. I have had quite a few friends say to me, I'm thinking about getting chickens, how difficult are they to keep, is there anything I should know? So I just thought I'd try and cover that off as quickly as possible in a quick 5-pointer. If you're watching this video, then your mind is probably already made up, and you're probably, like I did, decided that you're getting chickens and no one's going to talk you out of it. But I just want to raise a couple of things that you may or may not have thought about. Okay, so point one is, for me, all about garden space. So you don't have to have a really big garden by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not suggesting you can't keep chickens if you don't live on a small holding or a farm. We don't. We live in a 2-bed semi-detached house in a semi-rural location with a fairly average sized garden, and we do keep chickens quite successfully. I've got a flock of 7, and but all I would say is just consider the fact that if you have a very well maintained and very well manicured garden, keeping chickens is potentially going to stop that. So there's a couple of different options with keeping chickens. You can either keep them in a static coop and run, which is what we've done, and we've actually dedicated part of our garden to that. The downside being the run area does get quite messy and does need topping up with new surfacing on quite a regular basis. I'll do another video on the best flooring for chicken runs at a later date. Thrilling, I'm sure you can't wait for that one. And the other options are that you can free range your chickens during the day and just pop them away at night, or you can get a smaller, more mobile chicken run and chicken coop situation, which some people do quite successfully, and you can move that around the garden so that they're trashing different points of the garden rather than just trashing one continuously. We did free range our chickens for a while, but they really do, chickens are quite destructive, and if you're not aware of that, it is worth pointing out that their sort of natural instinct is to be pecking and clawing at the ground more than I ever anticipated. So if you have a well manicured garden and you'd like to keep it that way, I would probably suggest that you don't keep your chickens free ranging, because they do tend to make a bit of a mess. So that's probably the first thing to consider, and the first thing to consider is your setup. So point 2 then, for me, has to be about noise. So when I first started looking into chickens, I do really wish that someone had said to me, you do realise that chickens are quite noisy, and I don't think anyone did say that to me at the time. I was very much of the assumption that I was just planning on having hens. I wasn't planning on having any cockerels, and that would mean that they were all pretty quiet and not very noisy, but that isn't the case. We do have, I'm very lucky, I do have very accepting neighbours. One neighbour on one side used to keep chickens herself and is looking to get some as well, and the other neighbour, so far, touch wood, hasn't said anything about the noise. But what I would like to reiterate is, if you think I'm just getting hens, I'm not getting a cockerel, there's not going to be any noise from my chickens, to just think again, because chickens do like to have a bit of a chatter, and it's quite sweet. Sometimes you have that sort of constant sort of chippering away, but also it's worth noting that, especially in the spring and summertime, when they've laid an egg, or if something's in the garden like a cat that scared them, they do make a hell of a noise. So that would be my point 2. If you haven't thought about it and you haven't considered that already as part of, as a sort of factor into whether you want to keep chickens or not, just factor in the fact that they can be a bit noisy. So then point 3 for me would be, chickens aren't just for spring. We've all seen the lovely pictures of chickens sort of chippering about in the green, fresh green grass, with the sun on their backs, or having a nice sun bath, and that's lovely. But chickens do require care spring, summer, autumn and winter. So whether it's freezing cold outside and dark and windy and rainy, or snowy or frosty, chickens still need the same level of care. they still need to be fed and watered. So, you know, for us, we have 2 water drinkers and a large feeder for our flock of 7, and that probably, the feeder will probably last, so ours are fed ad lib. Again, there will be another video on chicken feeding and what to feed chickens and what they need from a food point of view, so subscribe to my channel if you're thrilled already about that video too. But you know, that does need feed topping up quite regularly, and the water pretty much every other day. And in this time of year, you know, spring, summer, you can get away with cleaning them out in the coop area probably twice a week, whereas this time of year it's literally every other day, every couple of days, keeping on top of keeping that clean. And you know, if you don't have a good setup with floodlights in your garden, maybe you need to consider that as well, because you do need good lighting. If you're like me, you work full time, I'm up early in the morning, either at the gym or out with the dog, and then back late in the evening, and that means that the time that I am outside and able to deal with the chickens, it's generally dark. So that's just something else that I would consider as well. If you're a bit fair weather and you don't really want to don your wellies in a waterproof to be making sure they've got food and water when they need it, then maybe chickens aren't for you. So point 4 for me would probably be the expense of chickens. So they're not overly expensive, and like with all animals, there comes a level of cost involved in sort of the setup. You know, the setup's probably the most expensive, and then there's that routine maintenance cost. If you're buying chickens because you like the idea of fresh eggs, I can honestly say it's probably cheaper to buy fresh eggs. You know, chickens do require feeding. Again, in my food video, subscribe. Thrilled about that already. I will sort of go through the different costs of different types of food, but you know, you will need to buy food regularly. You just need to consider the fact that they do need bedding, they do need feeding, they do need grit and various other things, which again, talk about in my feeding video, plug. So, you know, it is an expense, and you will need to think about that as part of your research into whether or not keeping chickens is for you. Okay, so point 5 is probably a bit of a negative one, but just something I wanted to sort of draw your attention to, and that is illnesses. So there's a whole host of information on the internet about chickens and the illnesses that they get and how common that is. You know, unlike rabbits and guinea pigs that, you know, we've all kept as children probably and experienced the odd bit of illness here and there, chickens do quite regularly pick up different parasites, and that's very, very common. So if you're of a sort of not a nervous disposition, but if you don't like getting stuck in and probably picking chickens up and probably getting covered in chicken poo and having to treat them for things like red mite, which, touch wood, we haven't had yet, but or poultry lice, which unfortunately we have had, or scaly leg, which a couple of mine have, which are all sort of parasite based illnesses, then again, chicken keeping might not be for you. So chickens do pick up certain illnesses, and you just need to be prepared for that they are by nature quite dirty creatures as well. So again, not putting them down, love having chickens, but this time of year, you know, the bottom of the run does tend to get quite squelchy and muddy, and I mean, I use wood chippings, again, video on that coming soon. But I use wood chippings in the bottom of ours, which does need topping up probably every few months really, and then digging out a couple of times a year and completely replacing. So that would be my other thing. Just be prepared for the fact that once you've got chickens, it's not really just a case, I mean, you probably could, but it wouldn't be recommended of just sort of plonking them outside and chucking food at them every now and then and hoping you'll get lots of eggs in return. You know, there is a sort of level of return on investment, if you like, and time that you need to put into your chickens to make sure that they're happy and healthy, and therefore lay happy, healthy eggs. So that in a nutshell is my probably top 5 things to consider if you haven't already considered them when you're doing your research in keeping chickens. You know, have you ticked all those boxes? Are you comfortable having them around? Are you comfortable with the noise and the dirt and the space they're going to take up? If you are, then great. Then get into keeping chickens. Get into keeping chickens. Subscribe to my videos, and I will do lots of regular updates about our chickens and problems that we've encountered and how we face them, and just generally sort of setting up keeping chickens. So if that sounds thrilling as it sounds as I'm saying it, then please subscribe to my video today.